McKinnon, who is a former advisor to George W. Bush and John McCain. He's also the co-host of The Circus on Showtime, must-see TV. Bill Kristol is a political commentator and the editor-at-large of The Bulwark. And Brian Jacobs is an attorney and a former federal prosecutor. And boy, do we need brains like yours, Brian, when we're in a day like this, or Wednesday, or Tuesday, or Monday. All right, let me start with the affidavit. I held up an example of one that I have seen many times in my career, and I expect to see this or maybe even more black. What do you think? More than a name and an address tomorrow?
I think the affidavit certainly will not show anything unredacted that leads to the intimidation of witnesses or that risks chilling future witnesses from coming forward. But I do think it's possible that the unredacted portions of the affidavit will reveal additional details about the back and forth between the Department of Justice and President Trump's legal team. Much of that information is public already. There have been reports of a declaration from one of former President Trump's lawyers about how all of the documents were returned. There have been reports of a June 3rd meeting between President Trump's lawyers and the Department of Justice. Additional details of that back and forth were almost certainly included in the affidavit, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those made public.
So, Mark, cue the circus. I kind of expect, I know what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, supporters are going to say, you know, look at this. You didn't show us anything. It's all a, you know, backroom dealing with a bunch of conspiracy Democrats and left-wing, you know, haters of Trump. And then, you know, those who hate Trump are going to say, look at all that transparency with all those Sharpie marks. I don't think you can satisfy anybody, no matter what the affidavit says tomorrow.
Well, I think Brian made the really important point, Ashleigh, which is there's a lot to chew on here, and there's going to be a lot to chew on when we see the unredacted documents. But I think that the most damning issue for Donald Trump is that which Brian talked about, which is the fact that Donald Trump was warned about returning the documents, was asked to send the documents, and refused to turn over the documents. That's kind of a slam dunk, on his face, prima facie, bad news for Trump. And if that's revealed tomorrow, I think that's the worst news, because then we know that he was trying to conceal something and he was told he couldn't. And to me, that's a huge issue and just the tip of the iceberg, because if he knew that he was supposed to give him back and he didn't give him back, that's a big problem. But it also probably means that the reason he didn't give him back is because there's something very problematic in the documents.
But then there's also the argument, and I do hear it from a lot of conservative lawyers, and that is that, you know, he had a lot of people in his ear saying, those are yours. We just outlined a whole argument where somebody said, if they knock on your door again, tell NARA to, you know, bug off. Those are yours. And then there's the notion that he figures that he's declassified them with the magic wand, which constitutionally he can do. It's not normally done, but then he sort of might think that these aren't dangerous things and these are just pieces of paper, you know, I deserve to have. So, Bill, while everybody sort of chews on the right and left arguments that will undoubtedly be appealed and be argued by, you know, opposing lawyers who have opposing political viewpoints, what about Mar-a-Lago? What about all this stuff? What about the ugliness of it all? I think we're, what, 75 days away from midterms? And NBC just had a poll this week saying that threat to democracy is the #1 issue. But I could see Trumpsters saying threat to democracy, the election was stolen. And non-Trumpers saying threat to democracy, he's going to steal an election. So I don't even know if Mar-a-Lago matters.
No, I think it is mattering, along with the January 6th committee and along with other things. You know, Tom Fitton, the person who was, as you say, there was that long article about today, who was telling Trump not to give it back. He's not a lawyer. He's the head of a conservative activist group, Judicial Watch. You'd think the head of Judicial Watch might be a lawyer, but he's not. So, so he wasn't getting any legal advice from any reputable conservative lawyer that he could hang on to those documents. And that, I think, becomes important because why was the January 6th committee? Why did it have an effect? Because Republicans were shown on videotape and testified saying, no, we couldn't, Bill Barr, I couldn't, you know, defend what Trump did after November 3rd. Pat Cipollone, we saw on videotape. Now we're going to have more and more as more stuff comes out. And certainly if we get to actual indictment, we'll have a ton of his lawyers saying it's out of the question. You can't keep classified documents. You can't keep any presidential records for yourself. You can make copies if they're not sensitive or classified, but you can't just decide what you want to take from the White House and put in your own storage room. And the idea that he didn't know is ludicrous. I was the chief of staff to Vice President Quayle, way, way, way below the level of president. Very different administration, the George H.W. Bush administration. And I was there for the transition. We lost to Al Gore, to Bill Clinton and Al Gore. I mean, the idea that we were told over and over, and everyone knew that you had to be super careful about cheating classified, not inadvertently have take something by mistake. So the idea that Trump didn't know is ridiculous. And as Mark says, the question is, why did he take those documents? Why was he so reluctant to give them back? So it adds up to a pretty damning picture. Will it change huge percentages of voters? No. On the margin, if you don't like the Trumpiness of the Republican Party, if you don't like the big lie, if you don't like all these candidates whom Trump endorsed being the candidates for governor and senator, and who might then do the same thing in 2024, I think it can make a difference on the margin politically.
Okay, and I'm really glad that you just cleared that up, because sloppy me, but also super sloppy reporting, because everywhere I have seen Fitton's name, he's been named Trump's lawyer. We actually saw he wasn't his lawyer. We saw he was his legal advisor. But dear heavens, I never imagined for a moment you'd have a legal advisor who wasn't a lawyer. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.